Hi, this is Matt at State of Flex here with a review for Star Trek Beyond. This is the third and currently final incarnation of the Kelvin timeline. And I think in a lot of ways this is the best of the bunch. Now, I think Star Trek 2009 is infinitely more enjoyable. It is just a prime movie-going experience, a true summer blockbuster from top to bottom. Very little intellectualism, lots of fun, lots of energy, lots of laugh-out-loud moments, a weight of drama that will even get you crying in the beginning with that whole Chris Hemsworth scene. But this film actually feels much more like Star Trek. It feels like they ripped an episode from the original series and revamped it, but tied it into the Star Trek mythos as a whole. There's a lot of tethering to Star Trek Enterprise with the whole NX brand of Enterprise starships. Not Enterprise, but starships. And this film is also buoyed by the use of characters. Now, I applauded Star Trek 2009 for having strong characters. This one has a much stronger sense of character than even that one because everybody gets a little bit to do and nobody looks like a buffoon doing so. One of the comments I made about 2009 was that even though everybody is really great and on point, the film had a need to undercut any form of action or drama with some comedy in a pre-Marvel universe, really. That made all the heroes kind of look a little bit like buffoons. This film gives all the characters great important beats without the buffoonery. Everybody is incredibly competent at what they do, and you see how this is the crew that would go on to become the crew we are familiar with. Or this is just them in a different timeline. And I was fully on board with that. I think the screenwriting, in part by Simon Pegg, is the strength of this film, as well as doing away with the obnoxious lens flares and making it a little more televisual rather than super sweeping and cinematic. Now, maybe that is one of the reasons why audiences didn't come out in droves, but I think it was more to do with the Star Wars of it all. This film had the unfortunate timing of coming out between two titans within the Star Wars universe. It came out, what, 6 months, maybe 7, after Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, directed by J.J. Abrams, and just a mere 5 months before Rogue One was coming out. All eyes were on Star Wars. Nobody had interest in Star Trek, it seemed, at the present time, which is so weird coming just, 7, 8 years off of Star Trek 2009 that just reinvigorated this franchise and gave it the thrust it needed to get it where we are today with Star Trek, where we have more movies and more TV shows in active development, with a movie coming out potentially at the end of this year or early next starring Michelle Yeoh. So it's unfortunate timing that this movie came out when it did, because in all honesty, I do think it's a much better film than The Force Awakens is. And even though it's a completely different film that Rogue One is, they both share the same thing as being excellent examples of the franchise that they are in, carrying the torch of what they are. But Star Wars was so, in the stratosphere of everybody's, public consciousness, and this was so far beyond that nobody had eyes on it. And it's genuinely unfortunate, because this is a good movie. This is one of the best Star Trek movies, and I think it's only gotten better with age. We have moved on to a point where Star Wars has crumbled and fallen beyond recognition, with even just 2 or 3 years away from when this movie originally came out. And Star Trek has found new life through television. And some of that Star Trek is not the greatest, and some of it is really quite good if you give it a chance, similar to this film. And if it's been a while since you've watched Star Trek Beyond, I urge you to do so. I had so much more fun watching this movie than I've had watching almost any of the previous Star Trek movies, even the ones I was really familiar with and intimately love, that I was just like kind of blown away with the qualities this one has. Now, it's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it has a good sense of action. It has stakes that feel real, and it has a weight to it of drama that plays out really well, while also not being like the game changer kind of episode where a major thing happens that's going to have ripple effects for many movies to come. This is its own movie, its own episode, its own installment that moves the characters forward, while not necessarily doing much to like change the status quo. And I'm fine with that. That is Star Trek. That is what Star Trek is. And this is a reaffirmation of the character of Kirk. Kirk joined this incarnation of the Enterprise on a dare, and he's struggling with his own identity of, does he want to do this? Is this fulfilling? Is this who he is? Or is he just like fulfilling a dare and trying to walk in his father's footsteps as that first movie suggested? And this is where Kirk learns who he is despite any kind of timeline thing. He is destined to be this captain, and this is a great story that tells that, while also exploring Spock and his dealing with the passing of Spock Prime, giving an audience a whole film to ruminate and marinate really in their feelings of losing one of the most important characters, if not the most important character, to all of Star Trek. Without Spock, we wouldn't have Star Trek as we know it. I don't know that Star Trek would exist. Certainly not in any kind of public consciousness that it has always lived on. You think of Star Trek, whether you like it or not, you think of pointy ears. And Leonard Nimoy brought so much to that character, and this movie was coming right at the point of his passing, and it really is an important send-off for that character without him even being in it. And that's kind of an important journey to take as an audience member. And I think a much more successful one than we got with some other franchises that lost their leads, such as like Carrie Fisher's unfortunate passing and how they dealt with it in Rise of Skywalker and stuff. They did the best they could, but I think this is honestly the best case scenario of having to deal with that. And this movie had to do it twice over, because this movie came out just mere months after the passing of Anton Yelchin. And that was a stunning blow to Hollywood. He was such a great up-and-coming actor, coming off an excellent performance, one of the best performances I thought of 2016 in Green Room, which is a little-known A24 thriller that had a villainous turn by Patrick Stewart. So if you're a Star Trek fan, check that movie out. But he died very unfortunately in a sort of car accident. I guess just accident involving a car. And this film had to kind of deal and wrestle with that. Now, his filming was entirely complete, but he has far more to do in this film than he had in any of the other ones. He has a presence, and he takes ownership and command of the screen in ways that we've never seen Chekov do in any Star Trek movie, shy of like the one that Walter Koenig and Nichelle Nichols starred in, the fan film that I reviewed on here about a year ago. And there's a beautiful moment towards the very end of this film where Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and then the rest of the crew start looking up into the stars as their ship is being rebuilt and whatnot, the new Enterprise. But before that happens, they're talking about, Kirk's talking about being here with the people that we love, as well as those that have passed on, and he kind of just gives a little glance to Anton Yelchin. That, I think, is just pure happenstance, but that was the moment the audience needed to have that cathartic release there, too. I know I rolled a tear at that when I first saw it in the cinema, and it held on really strong now, because I really do miss Anton Yelchin, the actor. But this also gives great work for the first time for Karl Urban, who was so perfectly cast in those first two movies, but they really didn't give him anything to do at all. Actually has stuff to do here, and he has a presence, and he's great, and his comedy, and they finally learned what they should have known the whole time, is Spock shouldn't be bouncing off of Uhura. That's an interesting take on a character, and it's not that weird, honestly, because you do see lingering moments of that in season 1. But Spock works best when he's with McCoy, and McCoy works best when he's with Spock. This movie gets Kirk and Spock together and to bounce off each other, and it's wonderful, and I loved it. This is the first time we really got to see that since like Star Trek 4 or 5, because they didn't have much screen time in number 6. So this was a great moment for us. I also really liked what they did with Uhura, like striding her own journey, separate from Spock. I like her elevated role in Star Trek and Into Darkness, but she's there to bolster up Spock and not really be her own character. Here she's given a little more to do herself, as is John Cho. And I like seeing the progression of John Cho in the first movie to the second and third, where you start seeing Sulu rising to be a captain, which eventually he got to be in Star Trek 6. We all know that, but we never really got the journey of how Sulu got to his captaincy. Here we get to see that through the 3 Kelvin timeline films, and if you were to watch, I don't include Into Darkness, honestly. I think it's a bad movie. I just watch Star Trek and beyond. But the one thing that I will say that Into Darkness does is give Sulu a little bit of weight here and there, just in a couple throwaway scenes. And if you were to watch all 3 of them, his character progression between the 3 movies, you can see him heading towards his own captaincy. And maybe, you know what, that's something that I would watch. If they wanted to do a one-off TV movie or theatrical one where we're following Sulu as captain of the Enterprise, say if Pine doesn't want to come back, I would watch the hell out of that. I like the character Sulu. I love John Cho. He's one of my favorite actors. Bring it. Everybody here is so good. Simon Pegg has some good stuff to do. He feels a little like he did in the Mission Impossible movies by this film, but Scotty's always kind of had that vibe to him. I guess it just feels weird because he's played by the same actor from those Mission Impossible movies. But as I say, characters are great. The other great element of this is oh gosh, why can't I think of his name? The villain in this is absolutely great. Fucking Heimdall, The Wire. Why can't I think of his name? He's a tremendous actress. Idris Elba is fan-fucking-tastic in this movie. I did not even realize it was him the very first time I watched this until like you see him without the makeup, and I was like, oh my god, he is that good. The makeup in this film is a robbery that it did not win for the Oscar. It should have won, and it lost to Suicide Squad, which almost made me vomit right here and now. Anybody who could award the Suicide Squad makeup for Killer Croc and pass over this film is dead to me. Just saying. But I love the makeup. Idris Elba is really great, really interesting character, and lingering elements of the militarization of Starfleet from Enterprise, especially in season 3 of Enterprise, make their way into this movie. And that was interesting and compelling to me, and I liked that, and I think this benefits having watched that show recently. It's a good movie. But the best element is the character it includes, which is Jaylah. Jaylah was a name chosen because they wanted to get Jennifer Lawrence, but she was unable to commit to this film due to coming off the Hunger Games and the X-Men's, she wanted to take some time and not be part of another major franchise. Completely understandable. Who they got is Sofia Boutella. She is recently in Rebel Moon, which I have a review up for. You should check it out. I'm wearing this very same outfit in that review. And she's great. She's so lovely. She's a really gifted actress, one that I really quite like, who's been in a handful of good things, like Atomic Blonde as well. She's a really good actress that I would like to see more of, but she steals the show in every single scene she's in. She is absolutely great. I loved her in this movie. And if they were to continue this franchise onward, I would hope they would bring her back, because I really liked her. I want to see more. I hope this isn't just a one-off character like we got with Carol and Marcus a couple of times, or the woman from Star Trek 4. This would be a character interesting to explore further. But alas, this is really Kirk's story. And Chris Pine gives his best performance as Kirk in this one. You've seen him as the boyish, roguish Kirk that we get in the original series. Here he's playing a far more restrained Kirk, a matured Kirk, a tired Kirk, a Kirk like Shatner played in Wrath of Khan. You even get a great scene between Kirk and Kirk and Bones, similar to Wrath of Khan, where they're just talking and ruminating on their past and the potential of their future. And I loved that scene. It's a great scene, but Chris Pine is perfect in this movie. He's so damn good, and I loved him in this film. So yeah, I like this movie a lot. But if this movie is remembered for anything, outside of being currently the last Star Trek movie, it'll be remembered for this. This film has one of the best needle drops I've ever heard in any film ever, and that is the moment that classical music, you know, Sabotage and the Beastie Boys, gets played to destroy all the evil bad guys and stuff. It is one of the biggest crowd-pleasing moments I've ever experienced in a movie theater. I saw it opening night with a full audience, and everybody started clapping and laughing and whooping. It was like Endgame. It was such a great needle drop moment. I've never experienced a needle drop quite like that one. That was epic. Absolutely loved it. And just having Bones be like, "Is that classical music?" Was just on fire. I was laughing so hard. I loved it. This movie's use of comedy is really quite good. Its action is strong. I like how they changed the outfits to be less slick and look much more similar to the TV show. They were tying it more and more to the original television show. When you get to the NX-1, it looks far more similar to a big budget version of that NX-style ship, which was cool. It unites the different Star Trek universes, and Enterprise is something that is kind of forgotten, and this is the one kind of thing that really kind of acknowledges it. So I thought that was cool too. What did you think of Star Trek Beyond? Let me know in the comments down below, and next week I'm going to be coming back to you with a review for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I held off on that one for quite some time because this film actually ends with a screen still, a picture of the cast from Star Trek V right at the very end, so I felt like this was a better segue into that film than going from 4 to 5 and then 6, because 4 and 6 are much more united than 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 are. So let me know what you think of this film in the comments down below. Stay tuned next week for Final Frontier. Live long and prosper. Peace.